Hello there my friends, welcome to my another video. Last week we finished building this tiny Gruppe Fehrmann Tiger and that video got me to 100 subscribers, so I really wanna thank you for that. But today we are going to paint it and also paint the tiny little figures that I got to it, as you could see in the last video. So I start with the base color. I don't prime the tiger because I just don't have a primer currently. I decided to go with the basic German grey camo. I know a lot of people argue about what shade this was, if it was more bluish or more greyish. I personally like a little bluish but not too much, so I just used some German grey from Vallejo together with white. To get the right shade I mixed some dead white from Vallejo together with their grey and I thinned it down with water. Then I started applying this mixture on the tank in thin layers. This took me around 5 layers, while in between them I was drying them up with a hairdryer to speed up the process, because one thing that I find really annoying about layering up colors is waiting for each layer to dry. So I found out that if you are using acrylic colors you can dry every layer way quicker by using a hairdryer. To give the tank that Gruppe Fehrmann look, considering that the suspension is different from the hull, because the hull is the early type and the suspension is the late type, I painted the suspension in buff color just to make it feel like it's built from different vehicles together. I also painted some parts in typical red oxide because I really enjoy that color and it brings some different shades to a grey model. Here you can see me applying the fourth coat. As you can see, it's making the tiger look already almost perfect. And here you can see me drying it up. Now you don't want to wait in one spot for too long because the heat can damage the plastic, so I just really quickly go around the model with the highest heat, and that dries the color up really quickly. It doesn't damage the model in any way and helps you work on the model way quicker. Now you can see me mixing together the red oxide. I used the Vallejo, Vermilion and Flat Earth, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but I mixed them together roughly in 1:1 ratio, but it was basically just guessing, adding more brown or more red depending on what I wanted, but in the end I ended up with a decently good looking red oxide color. I applied this on the barrel, on the cupola and few of the wheels. Now I found out later on that I shouldn't have applied it on the barrel, as the barrel was usually painted in dark grey heat resistant primer, so I changed it off camera by painting it black. Now I am not replicating an actual tiger from the Gruppe Fehrmann group, I just wanted to get the idea of basically scratch-built tiger from different destroyed vehicles across. Now I decided to try something else. I feel like my models are a little too flat, so I decided to do some, I guess you could call it color modulation or highlighting. What I basically did, I saw this in Plasmo's video, I mixed in some really light color, I applied water on the surface of the vehicle, and then I lightly dabbed the color on the hull. And then I also blended the depth color again with some water, just to create this not flat color but kinda highlighted, kinda differently colored in different places. Now you can see me here. In the beginning I applied the color too thickly. I kind of realized that was a bad thing, but by dabbing some more water on the kinda thickly applied color, I ended up with a really nice result in my I more or less applied this effect on highlighted areas where the light would hit the tank the most. I repeated this process after drying it up again with a hairdryer several times with different colors, just to give it that non-flat look. You know, I added some darker tones, some lighter tones, then even lighter tones, and again every layer was dried, and then added water, and again and again and again. This effect ended up being not all that visible on the finished model, but as you will see, I think it looks decently good. I mean, it's somewhat noticeable, but after the weathering it's really hard to see. Here in the picture you can kinda see it, but tell me in the comments what you think. Then I painted the exhausts with their base color, that was just light grey. You will see later why I painted them this color, but it's basically for the same reason as in the 35T video. Then I added some light dry brushing with white, just to really take out the most edges. Dry brushing method is basically dabbing your brush into some water, the brush is obviously dry, and then just unloading the brush onto a paper until there's almost nothing under the brush, and then applying it onto the model. I decided to paint the tracks brown just to give that already muddy and rusty look from the very beginning, so it allows us not to use that many weathering effects, but just play with the colors. I painted all of the other details as well. Then I went in with some sponge chipping method. I started liking this method quite a lot because it creates really nice realistic chips that are hard to achieve with a brush but are random enough with the sponge. So basically what you do, you, again, like with the dry brush method, you put the sponge into some color and then unload it on paper, and then you lightly dab the surface and you will have some really nice looking chips, in my opinion. I layered this effect with several paints. First I went in with some light paints, then I went in with some darker paints, and then I let it dry and applied the decals. The kit didn't give you too many decals, they gave you a number of an actual really existing vehicle that I didn't really want to use, and some German crosses, so I used those. Here you can see me applying more a dark gray chipping with a brush just so I can be more precise with where I want the chips to be. This was applied on the what I assume would be the most chipped parts of the vehicle. Of course, before that it was chipped with the previous method, just to give that layering effect onto the vehicle. Then I also filled in some of the chips with flat earth just to, you know, create some rusty effects as well. This is a typical thing I do on most of my models. I also painted insides of the shell impacts with this color as well, because, you know, they would probably get decently rusty. Then I started working on the exhausts. My favorite method I learned from Night Shift is first using the sponge chipping method to apply some white onto the exhaust. Then you do the same with brown. You can use different browns depending on how you feel. You can use several shades of brown on one exhaust or only one shade of brown, and then dabbing it with black as well. Then I decided to add the washes. Now, usually you would go with a dark grey wash for a grey vehicle, but I decided how about I try a brown wash, because, you know, I've never tried anything like this before and I was curious how this would look. So I thinned the wash down and I applied it around the details. This nicely highlights the details and gives them some depth. But for me personally, I use this mostly to create a dirty, grimy look more than highlighting details. Since this is a acrylic wash, I blend it with some water, and the result, in my opinion, looks really good. I wasn't expecting brown to pair this well with a grey vehicle, but artistically, this, I don't know, I just think it works really well. But you can judge that yourself. Then I also went in with some rust wash, as is typical for me. I applied this rust wash over the exhausts to finish the rusty exhaust effect, and then I applied them across, well, those rusty chips that I created, but those are not mandatory, you don't have to have them, but, you know, I applied it across the shell impacts as well, because those would get rusty even if you had a completely new vehicle, probably. I like the effect. That's about all I can say about it. Of course, the rusty color was again blended with some water. Then the last effect that I used on the vehicle is my typical dust wash. I basically take some acrylic buff paint. I should probably find a different shade, but for now I used buff. I thin it down to basically a wash level, and then I apply it everywhere I think the tank would get rusty. I didn't really wanna hide all of the effects I applied on the hose, so I only made the tracks dusty. Anyway, now that we painted the tank, we can start painting these amazing figures. Or well, I will show you only painting of the one. But, you know, I've never done this before, so I was really stressed about it. But I think it came out looking pretty well, so you can tell me what you think. First thing I did was paint the figure in dark grey. This isn't black, it looks black, but it's dark grey. Not that it matters, I painted the figure in dark grey, let it dry, and then I dry brushed it with white. This gives you these nice highlights of all of the folds in the clothing and everything, and considering how amazing this figure is, it really brought it to life already with just this base painting. I am basically kind of following Night Shift's tutorial, just differently, because he was, you know, using airbrush on some stuff and different colors, but I got inspired by him a lot. Then what I did, I didn't have any flesh tones, so I just used the buff again. I thinned it down to almost a filter level, or well, not almost the filter level, it was basically a filter, and I applied it across the face. I applied it in several layers, which resulted in the face being highlighted on places that were white on the base color, and you know, darker in the black places. And then I added some red wash to give some more life to the figure, and off screen I also added a brown wash to give some depth to the facial features. Then I just painted all of the details. The holster was painted brown, the uniform was basically the same color as the base color, but you know, I repainted it yet again, and the figure was done. And this is what I did with most of the figures, so definitely let me know if you like them. Anyway, this is end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed watching it. I do know I really enjoyed painting this tiger and these figures, and I am really happy that we already passed 100 subscribers. I wasn't aware I was even able to do that, but I did, and I'm really happy about that. So if you would like to support me, please do subscribe as well. Give me a like if you liked my video, perhaps share it with your friends. If you would like to support me financially, you can join my Patreon. If not, it's of course fine. And I will see you next week in the diorama video, because I made a tiny diorama for this tiny little model, and I really enjoyed doing that as well. So I will hope you will stick around to see that. Thank you for watching again, and see you next time.